Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Ebonscape. Welcome, everyone, to Use Your Illusions Volume 2. No, I just call it Illusions Volume 2. So this is part 2. Don't forget to watch the first video before you get into this one. So if you haven't done so, subscribe. I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this 2-part video, where I just decided to take a look at some of my favorite illusions and the myth and legends that inspire them. This one is Tannhauser Gate. If you're like me and you're a fan of the 1982 movie starring Harrison Ford, Blade Runner, then Tannhauser Gate should be familiar to you. Tannhauser Gate is referenced in the infamous Tears in the Rain speech by Roy Batty, the combat android or replicant, who is the last of his kind to be murdered. Yes, I said murdered, by Detective Deckard, the infamous Blade Runner. Now, ever since Tannhauser Gate has become the stuff of legend, what does it mean? What is it in reference to? He refers to Orion, the shoulder of Orion, which is a real constellation. There's actually no constellation in the sky that corresponds to Tannhauser Gate, although my belief is that Tannhauser Gate in the world of Blade Runner is actually a region in space. So what is Tannhauser Gate? What is Tannhauser Gate? First and foremost, there was a real Tannhauser, not unlike, say, Faust. There was a real Tannhauser who I believe was a German poet of the 14th century. Not unlike Faust, he made a kind of decision that ultimately ruined him. So in the legend of Tannhauser, which is based on the real Tannhauser, but is nonetheless a legend, So in the legend of Tannhauser, the fictional Tannhauser discovered a doorway to Venusberg. Venusberg, based on the goddess Venus. In some version, it's actually a fairy goddess whose underworld he discovered. Nonetheless, Venusberg is a world of pleasure, carnal pleasures of the greatest kind, and Tannhauser basically chose to indulge or overindulge in this Venusberg, this underground world of pleasure and carnal sins, and he overindulged to the point of guilt. And one day he decides to leave Venusberg and return to the real world. He found his way all the way to the Vatican, where he met with Pope Urban. He begged for absolution. He begged for his sins to be washed away. Unfortunately, Pope Urban told him he could not do it, not because he was a bad person, but because his staff was not blooming. You see, he could only hand out blessings if his staff bloomed, and at the time it wasn't blooming. Distraught, Tannhauser turned away and was never seen again. It's believed that he returned to Venusberg. Sadly also, it turns out not long after he left, Pope Urban's staff began blooming again, but he could not find Tannhauser, who had since then disappeared. He returned to Venusberg. So sad, right? The story itself is very intriguing, but Roy Batty, my theory is that the reference to Tannhauser is that he compares himself to Tannhauser, a man who has fallen out of favor in both the worlds of men and God. Batty himself is that man. We've heard these stories before of fallen men, but there you have it, Tannhauser Gate. This was actually the one that inspired this. I recently heard this term used only a few weeks ago, Methuselah, as in Methuselah. This is one of the few characters on this list who are not ancient Greek, and Methuselah is Hebrew, and he comes from the Bible. He's actually antediluvian, as in very old, before the flood, literally because he is Noah's grandfather. Noah is the guy that built the ark, and this guy is his grandfather. And according to the Bible, he lived to the rightful age of 969 years old, basically just under 1,000 years. Now, there are theories as to why this age is given in the Bible. One is that it was simply meant to show the progression of time, or how long the events of the Bible took place. Another theory is simply that it was a mistranslation of the Hebrew text, basically a mistake. Maybe they meant to say 96 or 69. Even so, Methuselah has become a synonym for longevity and, quite frankly, things that are as old as dirt. So when I heard this person describe a battle as Methuselan, it immediately struck me as, Methuselan, as in this person is older than dirt. Basically, Methuselan here meant age-old battle, a battle that's been going on for a long time, something that's ongoing and something that's almost ageless since no one knows how long it started. So, yeah, it's a synonym for old, for really old, for things that are very, 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 very old. Methuselan. Yeah, that's Methuselah, the shortest one on this list, one of the few ones that are not ancient Greek. Okay, and we are back to the Greeks. This time, Procrustes. Procrustes of the famed Procrustean bed. You might have heard of it, the Procrustean standard. No? Well, this guy is probably the one that I find the most disturbing and also one of the more interesting. So Procrustes of the Procrustean bed. His name, Procrustes, allegedly means the stretcher or one who hammers out the metal. Another name for him is Damastes, which means subduer, but let's just call him Procrustes. He was a rogue smith and bandit from Attica who attacked people by stretching them or cutting off their legs so as to force them to fit the size of an iron bed. This is absurd to call him simply a rogue smith. This guy was a serial killer of the worst kind. Supposedly in the myth, he had a bed in which he would invite passers-by to spend the night. So basically he was, masquerading as a innkeeper. Hey, spend the night at my house. Here's my bed. So whenever they would sleep on the bed, I'm assuming he would trap them and he would set out to work on them with his supposed hammer. If they were too short for the bed, he would stretch them to fit it. In later tellings, if the guest was too tall for the bed, he would amputate the excess length of the person. Needless to say, no one ever quite fitted the bed exactly. And yikes. The word Procrustean has come to describe situations where an arbitrary standard is used to measure success while completely disregarding obvious harm that results from the effort. It's largely used in academia in the phrase a Procrustean solution, which is an undesirable practice of tailoring data to fit its container or some other preconceived structure. In computer science, the Procrustean string is a fixed length string into which strings of varying lengths are placed. Basically, arbitrary standard is what a Procrustean bed means. And it's named after our guy Procrustes, one of the ancient world's serial killers. There you go, folks. I hope you sleep really well in that bed. Next time when you hear that phrase, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite, I want you to think of Procrustean bed. Maybe substitute it by saying, sleep tight in your Procrustean bed. That is Procrustes. Okay, folks, so we are moving from the Greeks to the Romans. The Romans, I'm not sure if he was Roman, but the individual in question is Pyrrhus of Epirus, whose army suffered irreplaceable casualties in defeating the Romans at the Battle of Heraclea in 280 BC and at the Battle of Axellum in 279 BC during what was known as the Pyrrhic War. A Pyrrhic victory is therefore a victory that inflicts such a devastating toll on the victor that it is tantamount to defeat. A Pyrrhic victory takes a heavy toll that negates any true sense of achievement or that damages long-term progress. It is used as an analogy in business, politics, and sport to describe struggles that end up ruining the victor. Yikes, right? So is it worth it is the question. Yes, you may win the battle, but you won't win the war. Maybe another version of this, but basically if it will lead to your ruin, but you think it's worth it, then it's a Pyrrhic victory. Short and sweet. A Pyrrhic victory. We've come to the end of the list in this part 2 of Allusions and the myths and legend that inspired them. And I think this might be the most famous one of them all. We've all heard of Oedipus complex or Oedipus Rex. This is definitely one of the best known allusions. And simply put, it's the desire to possess the mother sexually and to exclude the father. Said to be a source of a personality disorder if unresolved. Sigmund Freud, the famed psychoanalyst, coined this phrase, the Oedipus complex. And it is inspired by a tragic hero in Greek mythology named Oedipus, who accidentally fulfilled a prophecy that he would end up killing his father and marrying his mother, thereby bringing disaster to his city and family. In the best-known version of the myth, Oedipus was born to King Laus and Queen Jocasta. Laus wished to thwart the prophecy of his son killing him, so he sent a shepherd servant to leave Oedipus to die on a mountainside. Yikes, right off the bat you know this won't end well. However, the shepherd took pity on the baby and passed him to another shepherd who gave Oedipus to King Polybus and Queen Merope to raise as their own. Oedipus learned from the oracle at Delphi of the prophecy that he would end up killing his father and marrying his mother, but unaware of its true parentage, believed he was fated to murder Polybus and marry Merope, so left for Thebes. On his way, he met an older man and killed him in a quarrel. Continue on to Thebes, he found that the king of the city, Laus, had been recently killed and that the city was at the mercy of the Sphinx. Oedipus answered the monster's riddle correctly, defeating it and winning the throne of the dead king, and by extension, the hand in marriage of the king's widow, who was also, unbeknownst to him, his mother Jocasta. Years later, to end the plague on Thebes, Oedipus searched to find who had killed Laus and discovered that he himself was responsible. Jocasta, upon realizing that she had married her own son, hanged herself. Oedipus then seized 2 pins from her dress and blinded himself with them. Sigmund Freud used the name Oedipus complex to explain the origin of certain neuroses in childhood. It is defined as a male child's unconscious desire for the exclusive love of his mother. This desire includes jealousy towards the father and the unconscious wish for that parent's death, as well as the unconscious desire for sexual intercourse with the mother. This was probably among the most famous ones, one of the more tragic ones. Well, they're all kind of twisted in many ways. So, which one was your favorite? Let me know which of these 10 allusions or analogies was your favorite, and which is the one you use most often, or the one you've heard the most often. And also let me know if there are any obscure ones that I missed. I mentioned a handful like Achilles' heels and Lucifer, the fallen angel, but I haven't really used those. But if there are others that you know about that you would like to let me know about, you can drop a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. And until next time, I have been your host.